Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points, joined on this fine Wednesday afternoon by Brian Kamenetzky. He is my favorite Kamenetzky brother of the moment. He hosts Locked On Lakers.
Everybody's favorite Kamenetzky is whichever one is in front of them at the time that they need at that particular moment. I get it. It's fine.
How many times have you heard that joke? Like, is that one of those things?
Oh, it's pretty common. Like, I don't know if you have a lot of brothers or sisters. I like all of them more than you, but that's sight unseen.
I have two. And the younger one I get. The younger one, the middle one I'd be a little tweaked, but the younger one I get. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about, and this is kind of part one of a two-part crossover thing that we're doing between the Lakers Lounge and Locked On Lakers. This one, we're going to kind of set up the kind of like the conversation we had yesterday with Raj, where it's hopes, expectations, and concerns heading into the draft. I also, just a second ago, reported that the Lakers and Heat have continued in their conversations about a potential Andrew Wiggins trade. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then after the draft tonight, I will be going on Locked On Lakers to talk about whatever had just happened. So busy, fun day. Brian, you and I, just like Raj and I yesterday, know maybe like 4 names going into the draft.
No, I know one.
You know what?
Well, actually, it's not true. I know 3, but it's only because I've heard 2 of them since then. Like I obviously know who Cooper Flagg is.
Okay.
I know who Dylan Harper is. People were saying, "Oh, the Spurs are going to take Dylan Harper."
Yeah.
And I know who Ace Bailey is. I have never seen any of them play, including Cooper Flagg. I steadfastly do not watch college basketball because, I mean, for people who there are people who run around thinking the NBA product is a tough watch. You try college. I'm not doing that with my time.
I can't. It's hard. It's legitimately hard for me to watch. It's really, really hard. This was the first year. Normally, my friends and I will go to Vegas for the first like weekend of March Madness, and this year was the first year that we didn't go. And I realized how much of my interest in that first weekend of March Madness is solely predicated off of gambling.
100%. The minute you stop, like you have like don't have a work pool that you can enter.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you just truly do not care about the tournament at all.
And that's usually like the extent of my pre-draft workout. Now, if the Lakers have a pick, normally I will do a little bit of work about who the Lakers, might be looking at, who's in that window of who might go where and stuff. This year they have the number 55 pick. So I just,
First of all, it's not until tomorrow. And second of all, I mean, like, I don't know who they're going to draft at 55 in like every sense of that statement. I don't know who they're going to draft. They're going to come up with a person that I've not heard of. And I'm going to do what we always do.
Congratulations on being selected with the number 55 pick, right. Brian. Way to go.
We're going to call, people who have covered that athlete.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out information about it. Because like you talk about, like you may be doing a little scouting if the Lakers have a pick or whatever. But to me, that always gets you in more trouble. It's like all of a sudden I'm going to swoop in with my opinion of a guy that I saw play twice, in March Madness and have, big, capital letters, big opinions about whether or not the Lakers are making a huge mistake. Like, you need to watch these guys play all the time. You need to see them in their workouts. You need to see how they're going to be used at the pro level. And like, there's just no amount of college basketball watching that I can do that prepares me to do it like the people who actually do that for a living.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do the big opinions thing either. Totally.
For college, no.
No, but yeah. So today on the show, we're going to do, like I said yesterday, Raj and I put together our hopes, dreams, expectations kind of a thing. And then I think we should probably, the whole reason a lot of people are here right now, I think, is because of the Wiggins thing that I just talked about, or that I just tweeted about. So maybe we'll reverse the order here, and we'll go back to the expectations and draft day here in a bit. So we'll go ahead and start with that. I'll just go ahead and say that I reported the other day that the Lakers had checked in on Miami to ask like what the general price would be on Andrew Wiggins. The Lakers obviously have that relationship with Pat Riley. You know, Jeannie Buss and Pat Riley have that close friendship, and you know, Kurt Rambis, you know, these and that conversation has then advanced to actual trade talks. I would frame them as. I wouldn't say that anything is imminent. I wouldn't say that they are close on anything, but there is certainly enough smoke here swirling that I think it's worth kind of talking about. And Brian, the reason I find this interesting here is because, you know, the Lakers went into this offseason talking about their core, right? Their core of obviously Luka, LeBron, Austin, and then for some reason Rui was involved in some of those in some of the framing there. And you know, some of the stuff that I had heard was that the Lakers were kind of reluctant to break up that, again, air quotes, core. I just don't know, like, if you're including Rui in those core talks, I think that's really kind of stretching the definition of a core. This feels like a pretty good use of Hachimura's expiring contract to me.
Look, I think Rui, this is sort of one of these. It's like we all know who everybody is here. Like Rui is a player that had value to them, shot the ball very well last year.
Yeah,
was a major offensive catalyst. His defensive shortcomings were well known. He didn't get any better
especially
as a
by the
rebounder.
teams.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly knew. You know, he didn't improve necessarily as a rebounder, and like you just sort of know what it is. And the Lakers need some of the stuff. Like they need a wing, probably more than they need a semi one-dimensional, good at the dimension, but like, you know, one-dimensional power forward.
wing.
You know, I think a couple things about Wiggins. First of all, I think he is better than people think he is. Like he's like the Andrew Wiggins experience of drafted number one and he never became a star and like all these other things and like seeming sort of disappointing. It's easy to forget that he is still not 30 years old, I don't think. Or if he is, he's
just about. 30. I think he just crossed that threshold.
So he's been around forever. So like that's part of it too. It just sort of feels like but he's a very good two-way player still. He can still score. He'll reproduce Rui's points. Maybe not in the same way, but you can rely on him to give you the same level of
he actually scored more than Rui last year.
He did, but I mean, you know, and you know, he just won't do it as proficiently from 3-point range. He's a better two-way player, and I think what we learned in the playoffs is that it's not so much you need size, you need centers, but what you really can use are two-way players. And you know, Indiana had tons of them, Oklahoma City had tons of them, and you can cover a lot of sins for the rest of the roster when you can stack up 3 or 4 guys who can score a little bit for you and also defend. So where you're not doing this sort of jigsaw puzzle thing where every lineup change necessitates 5 others. That's where the Lakers have been for the last couple of years.
To me, it's also that the Lakers have so many guys who defend power forwards naturally, right? You have Luka, who's best off guarding power forwards. You have LeBron, who is probably best off guarding power forwards. You have Dorian, who at this stage of his career is probably best off guarding power forwards. They didn't have anybody. Anthony Edwards' primary defender in that series was Austin, and that's just, you know, you're putting Austin in an impossible spot there,
right?
Yeah, you know, and coming out of that series, the talk has been like, trade Austin, you got to get rid of Austin, you got to do this with Austin, and a lot of it is because like he was miscast by necessity, by, into that role of primary defender of Anthony Edwards. Some of the best defenders in the league wouldn't be able to do that. And I think the nice thing about Wiggins here is that you take Rui, who primarily, again, defends power forwards and is better at that, and turn him into somebody who is better guarding twos and threes, which is something the Lakers just did not have last year.
And it slots LeBron down too, which is
Yeah.
important. So, I mean, this is all predicated too on the idea that they're going to find a center somewhere. But like, if I had to choose between Andrew Wiggins and Rui-Hachimura going into next season, I will take Wiggins, and I don't think it's a particularly hard choice. And I like Rui. I mean, I think it's great how Rui really established himself as a valuable player in the league over the last couple seasons. But like, I mean, I don't, without getting too deep into like the extension eligible arcane rules of the CBA, it's not like we've been flooded with the Lakers are trying to figure out how to work out a long-term deal with Rui-Hachimura.
Yeah.
So he's like part of the core. I mean, come on, like that's silly.
Yeah. I was just going to say, normally if you're considering somebody a core part, there would be a rumor about extension talks, and those just haven't happened right now. Now, I mean, look, like if the Lakers did the thing that, say, Dallas did, where they extended Rui to less than 120% of what he is making right now, and he was still eligible to be traded moving forward, then okay, like that would make some sense. But I don't think,
by the way, it's not a bad idea.
It might even make him more valuable.
That would put Rui at about what, 21 million a year, something like that, give or take.
Yeah,
which is extremely tradable around the league, for what he does.
And it's funny. I don't know if you've noticed this too. This has been something that has really kind of surprised me growing up and covering the league. Expiring contracts were always this very valuable thing, and I think they're still valuable. But you're also seeing a lot of like pushback to that, where it's like, yeah, but if we trade for this a good player on an expiring contract, we now have to turn around and pay that player, and that turns into a headache immediately, right when we trade for that player.
I think, and I've thought this for a few seasons, and I'm not ahead on a lot of stuff, but I've thought that expiring contracts have always been overvalued, and they've been particularly overvalued by teams like the Lakers. And it's not so much that they don't have any use, but it's also too, is like, as the pool of teams that are capable of using cap space decreases, it's like you can't. I mean, there are fewer players that pop up and fewer guys that are out on the market. The market never looks as good as you think it's going to look, and contracts are more valuable. It's there's like this lack of creativity and lack of self-confidence. So you feel like if you have anybody on your books that you're not going to be able to make a move, like cap space, got to hold on to it. Lakers were slaves to that for years.
Yeah.
Like, stop. Like, if you show a little confidence, be able to make a trade, be able to do something to free up room if you have to. And you just like, as opposed to just relying on this avenue of cap. Then you also too, you end up overpaying for people who aren't good fits. It's just not at the very least, it's not a way to exclusively do business. So
yeah,
I don't
what the Lakers have done. Yeah,
exactly. I just don't think expiring deals are worth nearly as much as they used to be. So, especially expiring deals for guys that you might want to keep, but you don't want to necessarily have to overpay. Like, security is much better to know how much Nick Claxton's making over the next couple of years, or Daniel Gafford, or whatever. So even if it's a little bit more than you would prefer, it's not, you haven't given up 2 picks and a swap and a young player for a guy that you may not want to pay. Like, that's why DeAndre Ayton is such a dicey idea. It's like,
yeah,
what if he plays really well for 46
and you pay
games?
him? Yeah,
the 52 games that he plays before he gets hurt, he plays really well.
Yeah.
Now what do? You have to sign him, but you don't want
So
to.
what? I mean, just ask Phoenix how they felt about that ordeal. Yeah, it's funny. I've thought about this a lot with Austin, right? Where last season he was considered and he was definitely one of the top value guys in the sport for the amount that he was making. And, you know, the Lakers, I think correctly, well, given how it turned out, because Murray eventually got hurt, but correctly valued Austin above somebody like DeJounte Murray last year. But as soon as that season ended, his value, I think, dropped significantly around the league, because if you trade for an Austin Reeves right now, his contract, you know, he's going to opt out of it next year. And now whatever you gave up to get Austin Reeves, you might lose him outright to free agency,
Right,
because
because
some
there's
team's
a
going to really like some
0%
guy who
chance.
just did 25-5.
Yeah, there's a 0% chance he's going to sign an extension with any team.
No.
Like zero.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. Like he is hard to trade. We've done shows on that. Like, it's not that Reeves doesn't have value, but like to make an Austin Reeves trade, you have to find somebody that actually needs him, wants him, needs him, has a hole to fill at the two, and all that kind of stuff. Has stuff that the Lakers want in return, and is comfortable with the concept of potentially having Reeves walk. And so that's you do this, like, anytime you add an obstacle or a reason for something not to happen, it gets exponentially harder to do it. You start piling up 2 or 3 or 4 things that get in the way. Like, you're just not going to get a trade. I don't think the Lakers have to trade Austin, but he's harder to trade now than he will be at this time next year after he's got a new contract.
Yeah, one of the complaints that I get whenever I do any kind of reporting on what the Lakers might do is like, well, how many names have you thrown out there that you say they had trade talks on that trade doesn't happen? And it's like, yeah, it's because trades happen far less often than trade talks happen. Like,
Right, and also what
inherently.
talks.
Yeah, like, but anyway, let's talk about you know, what it would potentially cost, or what would be comfortable giving up for Andrew Wiggins. What I've been hearing is that it would again be a Wiggins Rui swap, and wow, that's a fun combination of words. A Wiggins Rui swap, and then the Lakers would have to attach one of their larger expiring contracts, whether it's Maxi Kleba or Gabe Vincent. I would try to push for Maxi Kleba, but you know, Miami is also going to ask probably for Gabe because he was good there in Miami. So, you know, that'll be part of the discussions. The other part of it is, I don't think Wiggins is so good that I would want to give up the 2031 or 32 first rounder for him. But Miami is asking for a first. So then I would imagine the Lakers would have to include Dalton Connect in the trade, which kind of tilts it a little too heavily in favor of Miami, in my opinion. But
yeah,
you know,
although
regardless,
at that point you're getting to a place where the Lakers would need to also get players back. Like, you know, so you can start to work your way across Miami's roster and see if you can pick off a couple of useful players that, you know, that fit what you're trying to do. You know, do they have I'm looking up their roster right now. Like, do they have?
I looked at Kyle Anderson. So the trade that I threw together earlier, and I tweeted it out while I was kind of making some calls or whatever. But the trade that I kind of had outlined was, I should put it on the screen, but I won't. It was Rui Hachimura, Maxi Kleba, Dalton Connect, and Shake Milton going out for Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson coming back. Anderson isn't quite the player he was a couple of years ago. I thought he was fine though in their brief playoff series this year. You do send out Dalton.
He's lost a step,
which is moving backwards.
How can anyone tell?
But if that's basically what it took to get this done, what would you think about that concept of a trade?
I would really try to pry one of their guards away or something, but like, you know, the basic premise of this is like, I sort of think about it like, can the Lakers replace Rui? Well, yeah, I think a lot, you know, Wiggins provides a lot of the scoring. They'll have to find some shooting. They definitely, it's like when they traded D'Lo, it's like you lose something, like you got to replace that shooting. They never quite got around to it. But, you know, so I see the thing there. Like, can you find somebody to kind of give you what Gabe did last year? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you can probably do that with some, of your exception or so. And I don't say that because like there are tons of guys out there. I just don't think Gabe was great. He was
very
pretty,
streaky.
he was pretty replaceable. And backup point guard is an important job on this team, but it's not as important as it is on other teams where your point guard, where you don't have Reeves and Luka and LeBron. Like, your Gabe Vincent's not a ball handling point guard. Like, that's not what he's doing really anyway. So I don't love, like, you had Connect in there. You're essentially then sort of doing Connect for slow-mo. I don't love that part. Connect might, where you are on Dalton, because like
I'm probably lower than most.
You mentioned this. I think, and I agree with you. I think Lakers fans tend to overvalue him. But the flip side of that is it's almost like if he is devalued around the league, trading him is a bad use of the asset.
Yeah.
Like, let him go play and do better, and then you can trade him.
Well, but then the possibility exists where he doesn't.
But if he's already devalued, like,
yeah, I guess you don't lose anything by him. I mean,
do you think
the
you
one
could
thing you
trade
do
him
lose
for
is
Mark
the
Williams
prospect
again?
of him maybe doing better in a different situation. Like,
for sure. But like, he's an older rookie.
Yeah.
And I think, I think everybody believes like, yeah, he can shoot, but could be a tire fire for the rest of his career defensively, which I don't think is totally unfair. But at the same time, I'm going to try to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm being really mean to Dalton, and it is not going to work. So much of defense is read and react. It's intuitive. It's understanding. I don't get the impression that Dalton is a basketball intellectual. I'm not talking about, I need him to take my MCATs for me. I just mean, I don't, he's very much in the I'm just here to hoop kind of way, which is why he's so creative and tried to dunk.
He's the dude with no regrets on his chest,
right?
Like it's just Dalton seems like a really nice dude. I haven't heard anything about him being like malicious or anything like that.
No.
There are certainly like enough whispers out there that there's frustration sometimes. It doesn't even have to be a whisper. There was the timeout that JJ Redick called and screamed across the court at Dalton saying, "That's your bleeping play." So it's like, if Dalton, the shooter, has his head coach frustrated over a play that is run to get him a shot, then I would imagine the things that he is asked to do that he isn't as good at, or that he wasn't drafted to do, only makes them all the more, those are even tougher. So
do you think the Lakers could trade him again for Mark Williams? Like, do you think they could do that trade again?
Yeah, I actually think so.
Okay. But is that because the Hornets really like Dalton, or because they really are worried that Williams is going to, right?
Yeah.
So distressed assets are tricky like that, because that you can only trade them once. And would I include Connect in a Kessler deal? Yes, no question. Like, you're not getting that done otherwise. Kessler's 23 years old, and so on and so on. Position of need. I don't think your trade is a bad one. I think you can look at it and be like, look, they filled the biggest need that they had, that they could fill through a trade. They still kept, I mean, if I would rather trade the Dalton than the pick, if I could.
Yeah.
So if I could keep the pick and trade Dalton, then I would do that.
And that's essentially how I designed this thing out, because I would like to
Pele Larson back. He was pretty good.
The other part of this too that I'm going to be kind of meta about in my reporting here, because I don't see this too often, where people throw water on their own reporting for a decent reason. But what this kind of struck me as is I have heard plenty that the Lakers aren't exactly thrilled with how much it's costing to fill their center spot by a trade, because all of these teams saw exactly what it was going to take, what they were willing to give up for a center, and they have better centers or more healthy centers than Mark Williams, so they're asking for even more than it was going to take to trade for Mark Williams. And we know this about Rob, that he has kind of a price in mind, and he doesn't like to extend beyond that price. And he doesn't necessarily even like to negotiate a whole bunch beyond that price. And what that has led to is, this potential for, all right, fine. You don't want these few assets that we have for the center that you have. Well, we'll go use it on something else. And this kind of struck me a little bit as, and in all of these other trade hypotheticals where they aren't trading for a center, it struck me as like, oh yeah, we'll do it. We'll trade for somebody else.
Actually, I don't like make me cape for Rob. Jeez, but like I don't think that's fair, because we had this conversation, Andy and I did on the show, I think for today. It's, you remember, let's say the thing where you're like, wait, which day did we talk about this? And then which day was the show published? And now it's very confusing to me.
It's a
I
daily
never
show.
know what day it is.
People always are hitting me up about, on 2 Wednesdays ago, you said this, and this. And I'm like, man, I don't remember. There are times where we're in Slack and Harrison will remind things about stuff that he and I talked about last night. And I'll be like, I don't know, man. I'm sorry.
No clue. And so like, I can't remember what day it is, which is why I've been like, always need a watch that has a date window on it, even though some people don't like that. But like Clint Capella, for example, who I think is a realistic in the sense that you can come up with a scenario in which he would sign a taxpayer mid-level with the Lakers.
Yeah.
I think the reality of it is if I had to pick the coin flip between Capella costs more than the Lakers can give versus Capella ends up on the Lakers, absolutely taking costs more. I think he ends up closer to 10 than if he wants it than the Lakers. I just, assuming there are enough teams that want that, because he's still a pretty good player and there are no centers. Yeah. And so it's a really bad market. There's no natural alignment. I see a lot of people in the chat have asked about like Bam Adebayo. Like you put together the best offer the Lakers can put together, which would be Reeves, Connect, and the first.
It's everything.
It's everything. That is everything. Like, yeah. A couple pick swaps I get us in there too. Like, is that enough for Bam? Like, you're essentially trading Reeves for Bam at that point. Reeves and Connect and a first. You're trading everything. Like, I'm not entirely sure Miami even says yes to that. So, like, there aren't, the Kessler thing, all the reportings is that, Utah wants multiple first round picks. Well, the Lakers don't have multiple first round picks. They barely have multiple picks if you include their second rounders. So there's not a natural way to solve the center issue through trades. And so rather than trade for a player that is lesser, it's not the only need that they have. And so I think you can get tunnel vision and so focused on, we have to get a center, that you can get a lesser center than you'd be able to do, solve 2 or 3 other things and do the best you can with your, taxpayer mid-level or something, and hopefully land somebody serviceable for a year or whatever, or 6 months until the circumstances changes. So I don't think the idea of we'll walk away from it and we'll just fill other needs is a fair way to criticize Rob. I don't think you should go past that sort of proverbial line between what you think is good and a bad value for your team just because center is the most obvious need that the team has.
Yeah, I'm not even levying it as a criticism necessarily. I just think we are in smokescreen season, and we know what the Lakers very desperately need to address. And we also know how Rob has had some of these talks in the past, and he's been willing to push away from the table. Sometimes I think to an extent that has hurt the team, but he has been more willing to push away from the table than I think people around the league give him credit for, and that has, I think, enabled him to get good deals on the trades that he has actually made. Is the fact that he has pushed away from the table.
Okay, so I misunderstood a little bit.
Yeah, but the way that I framed it poorly, and essentially what I wrote, part of the thing that I wrote in this piece is that, if you're a team and you have a center, whether you're Brooklyn, whether you're Portland, whether you're whomever, if you have one of the centers that the Lakers have been kind of calling around about, and you can kind of, or have banked on getting X or Y asset for your center, and then all of a sudden the Lakers turn that X or Y asset into a different player because you tried to get X or Y asset and then some. This felt to me, even as I was writing about it, even as I was having conversations with people about it, this felt a little to me smoke screen adjacent at the very least, where it's like, yeah, we'll do it, and Wiggins would really help. Like that, that also needs to be pointed out here, is that he feels an actual need too. So
he's a better version of DFS with maybe a little less shooting, but he'll do what DFS was intended to do better. And then you can bump Dorian down. I'm assuming they bring him back to, bump him down into a backup role, which I think is more suited for what he is at this point of his career. You're strengthening the bench, filling a need in the first unit, making that first unit defense much better.
Yeah.
So that to me is more valuable than a marginal center.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. I want to, kind of segue back to, or circle back to the draft, which is in a few hours and 4 hours or so. No, a few hours. Cooper Flag will be a Dallas Maverick in a few hours and 7 minutes. And I want to ask you, what are your expectations going into this draft? Raj and I basically set our baseline for, we said we would like the Lakers to have addressed the center spot tonight or over the course of the draft. Does that matter to you?
Nope. Because I don't see how they can. I am very bearish on the center. I mean, they could do it maybe. I don't see how they're doing this without free agency. Without, at the very least, without the leverage of free agency, because the centers, Gafford, I guess, I'm sure everybody kind of understands what the parameters of that deal might look like. But Dallas probably wants to explore PJ. They want to do it, sort of see which deal, because they have too many bodies, but they don't have to resolve that problem today.
Yeah.
And Utah has no need to trade Walker Kessler today. I think if the Lakers had enough to get Walker Kessler, they'd have Walker Kessler by now. So I just don't see there's a lot of stuff that they can do to solve the problem until you get to free agency. So I have no expectations of them addressing center over the 2 days of the draft, other than maybe they draft somebody at 55, but that doesn't solve your problem.
So what then are you expecting of the Lakers, or is it just kind of like,
nothing?
I'm going to ride this out and see where we stand?
Nothing. I mean, I'm curious to see if they do anything. I would like to see them buy a pick. Buy into the second round if they can. If you have if you have an ability to take a contract like, Gabe Vincent or something like that and parlay it into something marginally more useful, because they want an expiring contract, and you can take a guy who's got 2 years left on his deal, and maybe it's a little more marginal. You pick up a second round pick for your troubles. I would like to see the Lakers do more stuff like that. But I have no expectations for them. They have no assets really. They don't have any picks to use in this draft, and so it's it couldn't be.
Other than that, how is the play, Miss Lincoln?
Right, but they're not attending the play. That's the thing. It's they're not going to get shot.
They left their ticket at home. That's good.
They're just saying they are not attending.
Maybe that'll be the name for this pod, this episode. NBA draft review. They're not going to get shot.
Right. I mean, but think about how much better it had been for Lincoln. if you just not attend, like, you know what? We don't have, I don't like live theater. Like, I'm just not going tonight. And so, like, the Lakers don't have a reason to be at the theater. So I have no expectations for them. I hope they buy into the second round. I think they probably will, if only because there are too many teams with too many picks. Like, with 4 second round
Brooklyn
picks.
has 5 firsts. I have no idea. Like, they're the team to watch for me. Whatever they choose to do, because if they choose to use all of their picks, that means they have to trade some of the guys on their actual roster. And if they don't choose to use all those picks, are they going to use it to consolidate their picks and move up? Are they going to use it on an actual win now player? I'm really curious where they're
going. Because it's different than like OKC. Like OKC will just keep trading their stuff back, so they always have that pool of assets. Whereas, Brooklyn could still use better players. So like if they could trade up and do something interesting, I think they could. But I for the purposes of the Lakers, though, it's really, look, there are a couple teams that have like 3 or 4 second rounders too, I believe, that are clearly not going to be used. And so go purchase one of those. Use some of that Mark Walter money. They don't have it yet.
They don't have it yet.
But it's there. Come on. Just little. It's in your own best interest, like, to float them a little loan, Mark Walter. Like, how many they can only buy? Can you buy more than one? I don't even remember the rules on this.
No, it's a set
cap.
amount of money that you can spend. Yeah, I think they have about $7 million that they can spend. So all right. So I'll ask the question in a slightly different way then. Is there an outcome to this draft that would disappoint you? One would think if you don't have expectations, then you can't be disappointed. But
correct. Yes, my baseline answer is always, and it's sort of lame, but I think it's applicable. Don't do stupid things. Like, there's a person here, I think Brian Kamenetzky, it's literally spelled correctly on the rundown, Seth. Don't be lazy. He's like, the Lakers love to make headlines during big events. And I think there is some truth to that historically, but trying to make headlines during big events leads you to do stupid things.
Yeah.
So it's first, do no harm. Don't do stupid things.
Don't get shot.
Like, they are in a box. They put themselves in the box. But you can't shortcut probably getting out. The Lakers got extremely lucky in the sense that they shortcut all these problems that they were going to have with what exactly do we do with this LeBron AD core, because Nico Harrison got freaked out by Luka's weight. And so, and that,
Michael Finley grabbed a beer and it changed.
Right. And so he flipped out, talked to the only GM he felt confident dealing with. And, and now the Lakers have Luka, which in the short term does make some of their problems a little worse, just solves a lot of long-term ones. You can't fix it all this offseason. It's very unlikely the Lakers can fix everything this offseason. They can make themselves, I think, significantly better if they do smart things, but they can't go through every box that's going to make you say they're probably as good as Oklahoma City, because if you want the top end talent that they need, you can't do that in depth at the same time. If you want depth, you probably can't really boost up your top end talent. Pick one. So they can make themselves better and they can make next season very interesting, but you can't try to fix everything at once. So what would disappoint me? Stupid things, Anthony. Stupid things.
Well, you already came on the show. A reminder, please do hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button to there's a few more of you in here today than usual. So I would appreciate if you guys subscribe to the show so that you don't miss moments like this. Last thing before we get you out of here, and throw to the draft, and a reminder also that I'm going to be on Locked On Lakers later tonight after the draft.
Did the Lakers
hopefully recap the stupid?
And did they get shot?
You'll know it's great depending on if I show up with Joker makeup or not. But
oh God, I hope not.
But yeah, I want I want to end on this because of the Wiggins talk and the all of the things that the Lakers need to accomplish here. We have the backdrop being the Mark Walters sale and all of everything that comes with that as well. Do you think Rob feels any pressure? Because do you think Rob feels any pressure with that sale now official, right? Not officially official. It's going to be done in the end of or towards the end of Q3, maybe Q4, according to that, according to the release. But the way it worked out with the Dodgers when Mark Walter took over there was he gave Ned Coletti a little bit of time. He gave him a couple of years, and then eventually, Stan Kasten hired Andrew Friedman, and the rest is history from there. How much pressure do you think Rob feels, given the way things went with the Dodgers, and given the way that the Dodgers have operated over the years compared to how the Lakers have operated while Rob has been there?
I don't think he feels a ton yet. I don't think the Lakers are going to look significantly different. I think Pelinka is going to be here a little while. Unless of course they just fall off a cliff or something like that, or there really is. But like, I also, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, like Jeannie is going to be the governor for the foreseeable future, but that does not mean that Jeannie is going to be the final say in how the franchise operates. I think she'll run the business. I think she'll continue to do all that stuff. She'll be the brand ambassador. She'll do all that, because if you were going to hire someone to do those things, you would hire Jeannie Buss, because they're very good at that stuff. But the basketball upside is going to look a lot different, I think, over the next couple of years, and Jeannie's not going to stop that. I don't think that necessarily means that Pelinka gets fired, but what I do think it means is that Pelinka probably has a boss in the next couple of years, but it won't happen between now and the trade deadline. I think, next season. I think they'll start relatively quickly investing in infrastructure. Like, I don't know if it's going to take closing. It shouldn't take closing on this deal for the Lakers to start making those infrastructure investments. Like, that would be disappointing to me. I don't see why it would take that for them to beef up the scouting department. Like, they know the money's going to be there. I don't think he's that worried. Not yet.
I also think he's been there for long enough and made enough money in it where it's like, look, I had my run. If my run is over when it's over, it's over when it's over. I don't think, eventually, if he is replaced in the way that Ned Coletti was, that he would be all that disappointed. Now,
Coletti was sort of sunsetted, right?
Yeah, kind of. Well, I mean,
they gave him like an emeritus
kept on as like a consultant, and then he's now does the TV shows with Spectrum, right?
Yeah,
so,
they retired him, like but he was also had been doing it for 30 years or something like that. So like,
do you think Rob would be good on Spectrum? He's a good talker.
Well, sort of. He could be. I don't think he'd do it.
Yeah. All right, we do have a super comment here. So Brian, you can hang out for it, or you can peace out if you like.
Is it a super comment? Like the comment is super? Like that is a super comment, or is it like
a super comment? I'm going to say whatever I have to keep those super comments coming,
right.
But it does involve playing this clip.
All right.
All right. So Ryan Lucas asks, what about AR, Vando, Maxey, the 31st first for Wiggins, Ware, and Kevin Love? You keep Dalton in the 3 first swaps. Would both sides do the deal? Would neither? Why or why not? I'll just put it to you this way, Ryan. The Heat would not trade Khalil Ware for Kevin Durant. I don't think they're trading him for Austin Reeves and Jared Vanderbilt. I think Ware is there to stay. They consider him a cornerstone of their franchise. I also think the Lakers consider Austin Reeves a cornerstone of their franchise. So I don't think they're going to be looking to move him for a pretty good 3-and-D wing and a young center who might be good, but I don't think is definitely going to be a star. Where do you arrive on this trade here? It's one of those rare trades that I think both sides say no to.
Yeah, they're not giving up Ware, I think, first and foremost, but I don't love. That's too much. I'm not you're starting into 3 swaps and the Wiggins, like, I don't think they want Vanderbilt.
I don't think
I
anybody
think
really
they
wants
really
Vanderbilt.
like Ware.
I don't think the Lakers really want Vanderbilt, but
No, I'm talking about Miami. I know the Lakers don't. But this really gets to the problem. It's like
yeah.
they just have too many guys who play in one direction. Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if when you told me that I didn't have to stay, I also took that to mean I didn't have to listen very carefully. So I'm only now just
That's
catching
perfect.
up.
No, that's
I don't
that's
think that works.
I don't think so either. All right. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge Podcast. A reminder, I will be on Locked On Lakers a little bit later today. If we get any kind of breaking news, I will hop on here and break that down. Brian, we tentatively said about what, 7 o'clock your time?
Well, between 7 and 8, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
So
we may even do it live.
we might even do it live. I prefer live shows.
Well, it's also it's easy for me in post. So
yeah, that's why I like live shows. That's why all of my
if we're
shows
being honest here, it's because I'm doing all the work by myself because Andy's out of town and it's easier. So
yep. Perfect.
We'll see.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you very much to Brian for hopping on. And I will talk to you guys, as I always say this time of year, in 15 minutes, potentially. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.